Good morning. I'm Bob Rubin. On behalf of my colleagues at the Hamilton Project, I welcome you today to our discussion on U.S. labor market trends. Before getting into the program, let me just say a word or two about the Hamilton Project. About 8 or 9 years ago, a group of us got together who were very concerned about public policy. And we thought that there was a real need for additional focus on analytic and evidence-based development, policy development, and also for support for seriousness of discussion with respect to policy issues. And I think that is even more true today than it was when we started the Hamilton Project, in part because of the dysfunction of our political system, and in part because of the continued transformation of the global economy with rapid technological change, effective growth policies in many emerging market countries, and globalization. And if you look at those factors, the ones I've just mentioned with respect to the transformation of the global economy, and it is a powerful transformation, they relate directly to the topic that we're going to focus on today, labor market conditions. The specific focus of the presentation will be Jason's comments on labor force participation rate, but that logically leads into discussions about job creation, wage pressures, stagnant median real wages, inequality, and unemployment in all of its aspects, the official unemployment rate, but also the various other measures of employment and unemployment. To return to the Hamilton Project itself, it is, to the best of my knowledge, unique. We are not an institution, but rather we are a small partnership. We have involved in that partnership former government officials, policy experts, academics, people involved in business and finance, and they are organized into an advisory council. The advisory council, as I just indicated, consists of people from many different walks of life, and I think that has given us, since it provides the guidance for the Hamilton Project, a distinctive perspective with respect to public policy issues. Our architecture is totally open. Policy proposals are commissioned from leading experts and policy analysts from around the country. We do not endorse policies, but rather we provide a platform for discussion, for deliberation, and very, very importantly, for promulgation, for dissemination in government circles, media circles, and policy circles. The Hamilton Project works in partnership with the Brookings Institution, and that institution's intellectual vitality is a very important part of our life. We believe the objectives of economic policy should be growth, broad-based sharing the benefits of growth, and economic security. And we believe that rather than being antithetical, they can all be mutually reinforcing. We also support market-based economics, but believe strongly in the vital role of government to provide the functions requisite for economic success that markets by their very nature will not provide. And that takes us to today's discussion. I've already described the topic as labor market conditions writ large, starting with an examination of the participation rate. On the issue of measurement, there's also the complex and controversial question of what is the comprehensive unemployment rate today, if you include the official unemployment rate and then discouraged and marginalized workers and those who are temporarily employed or have temporary jobs but would like to work full-time, comparing all of those last three, marginally attached workers, discouraged workers, and the temporary workers who would like to work full-time, comparing the rates of those to what they would be in a normal full employment economy. In other words, what is the excess in those areas of what it would be in a normalized full employment economy? And that, of course, leads to the question of how that comprehensive unemployment rate, that unemployment rate comprehensively measured, compares to the similarly measured unemployment rate prior to the recession. And given that, how long should it take us to return to full employment, again in this comprehensive sense, given the rate of growth we expect in the economy, the rate of job growth we expect in the economy, and the annual increases in the potential labor force. And it is interesting, we celebrate, and we should celebrate, when we have job creation of 200,000 or 250,000 jobs a month, but those still turn out to be relatively small annualized rates of increase. The 200,000 jobs is about 1.7 or 1.8% a year, and 250,000 jobs a month is an annualized increase of about 2.2% a year. So that's still a relatively slow rate of growth relative to what some people at least think is the excess labor capacity, though there's a lot of debate about what that labor capacity is, and perhaps Jason and Alan can shed light on that. Let me add just one more, or two more comments rather. I think there's a tremendous challenge in meeting the objectives of achieving increasing incomes at all levels and broad-based sharing in our output of goods and services. And that issue is far more complex, and the policy measures with respect to it are far more uncertain than is recognized or at least acknowledged in the policy community and in most political and policy deliberations. And that is because of the powerful changes that are taking place in the global and economic environment. Most importantly, technological development, and to a lesser extent globalization, are on the one hand central to growth, and on the other hand can create tremendous pressures on wages and on jobs and job creation. And that is true with respect to jobs at all income levels, lower income level, middle income level, and even top income level, although it's skewed considerably toward problems with respect to what we think of as middle income jobs and lower income jobs. And it creates enhanced opportunity for some of those in the top quintile, or maybe it's not the top quintile, but at least the top of the income distribution. In this context, it seems to me there's a profoundly important question about which there's a lot of disagreement as to whether technological development is going to continue at the rapid rate that it has, and if it does, whether the labor displacement effects that have already taken place are going to continue. And looking at those possibilities, what kinds of policy responses should we have that can best enable us to deal with what, at least to me, seems like a daunting problem? Let me mention one other issue, and I know it's in some of Jason's materials because I've read them, and that is that we have a very low participation rate and a very high unemployment rate amongst young African-American males. And that is a cadre of our population that is going to be very important to our economic and social future. So this is an issue not only of great importance to those people, but to all of us, to our entire society and to our economy. And once again, the question of what kinds of policies will be effective with respect to this problem seems to me is a very complex and uncertain matter. So we are very fortunate to have with us today two people who are very specially equipped to address these vital and complex issues. Jason Furman, the chairman of the President's Council of Economic Advisors, and Alan Blinder, the Gordon S. Renscheller Memorial Professor of Economics and Public Affairs at Princeton University, the university that I very much wanted to go to when I was in high school, but they did not have a reciprocal feeling. And former member of President Clinton's CEA and former vice chairman of the Federal Reserve Board. Both are outstanding economists. I've known them both for a long time. They also have a keen understanding of politics and policy. In keeping with the practices of the Hamilton Project, I will not recite from their resumes. They're distinguished. They're in your materials. I will just add that Jason is a former director of the Hamilton Project. He replaced Peter Orszag when Peter went to become head of the CBO. And perhaps less well known, Jason, at a younger stage of his life, was a juggler on the streets of New York. And I think in some sense that may help explain his success in Washington and his ability to work with quite a varied cast of characters, including myself, over the years. Alan Blinder, in addition to being one of the nation's most highly respected economists, not only in the academic community, but also in the policy and business community, is a distinguished and active member of the Hamilton Project Advisory Council and outstandingly adept at juggling ideas. Our program will start with Jason presenting a paper he released today on the participation rate. And then in his comments, I have the impression he will also discuss labor issues more broadly. Then Alan and Jason will have a discussion. I'll be the moderator on all the kinds of issues I've just mentioned and on Jason's presentation. And after that, we'll wind up with questions from you all, and we will adjourn at 12:30. Let me close by thanking Melissa Carney, our director, the director of the Hamilton Project, for the guidance she's provided, and on this project, this event, and most particularly Karen Anderson, our managing director, and Ben Harris, our policy director, for putting together this program on extremely short notice, about 1 week's notice, and for helping all of us to frame its intellectual construct. And finally, to the staff of the Hamilton Project, they are extremely talented, they are very hardworking, and without them, we would accomplish none of what we do. With that, Jason, the podium is yours.